Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. I have Abagail with me. We are going to get into growing your digital presence. I know this is going to be a really valuable conversation for everyone listening. As we talked about just briefly before I hit the record button, what you do here is applicable to every type of business, whether it is someone's intention to be operating virtually one-on-one, or they have your conventional brick and mortar business. So I want to welcome you to the show, Abagail. I'm looking forward to sharing some nuggets with our listeners today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to dig in and give you guys actionable strategies you can implement.
I love the actionable strategies that people can implement. There are way too many of these there's like business cliches, and there's the business axioms, and there is all of the sort of high level understanding of things. Like, I should have a lead magnet. What the does that mean? I should, I should be doing one to many. That's great theoretically, but how do I actually do that? How do I go from being a one-on-one service provider to filling a group program? Those missing pieces are discouraging and frustrating, and we're trying to figure it out, and we're sort of trying to piecemeal it. And then sometimes you invest in a course and you kind of understand a little bit more. But let's see if we can give people some actionable steps that they can implement right here, right now, today, to start to put some of these principles into practice. Let's start, though, by talking a little bit about your business, so my listeners have a frame of reference for who you are, what you do, your area of expertise, and then we can get into some of those more practical,
Yeah,
applicable things.
totally. Well, I'm Abagail Pumphrey. I'm the CEO of Boss Project and host of the Strategy Hour podcast. I've been running an online business since 2015, and I've been running my podcast since 2017. But I originally started out building a design agency and working almost exclusively with local clients, primarily doing branding and website design. But I always had this desire to share what I was learning along the way, whether that was how I was getting new clients or my sales process or the tech I was using or whatever. I love breaking down strategies and really making them digestible for someone at any stage of business. And so what I did do and didn't realize I was doing at the time was build an entirely second business that was all around teaching people the practical skills and providing the tools and resources they need to build a profitable business online. And born out of that was Boss Project. And I have gone on to teach more than 37,000 students from across the globe practical tips on both the marketing and sales side of their business, but also how to make an irresistible offer, how to market that to your ideal client, and really giving people structure and practical tools so that they can move forward and build a business that's all focused around your personal life. I think so often we're given a framework that could work, but it's so focused on one person's unique perspective and their own journey. And they're like, copy me exactly, and you'll get to where I'm at. And the problem with that is ultimately that's their personal experience. And I want to help you be exposed to a bunch of different ways you could grow or could build your business. And you pick and choose the things that are right for you and a right fit for your life. I've been through some personal big challenges when it comes to building a business, both with my health following a 5-car collision. I suffered a traumatic brain injury pretty early on in my business building adventure. And then for the last several years was the full-time caregiver for a grandparent suffering with dementia and ultimately passing away. And so I know that people, when they start a business, they think that it's all going to be focused around making more profit. And in an ideal world, maybe we could just show up to work on work and make money, and that would be it. But our life affects what we do every single day at work. And the season you're in dictates your availability and the things you can accomplish and all the things in between. And so I want to help you regardless of what season you're in and find a strategy that's going to work for you.
I love that. I have been working with clients for a very long time now. I've been in business for almost 2 decades. When I started to work more specifically and exclusively with business owners, I saw a very, very, very common phenomenon that you referenced.
Mm-hmm.
It's that looking to others as though they have the magic formula and then trying to force yourself to make that work for you. And in many, many cases, what ends up happening is we are so acutely aware of where things don't feel right. And then we are trying to force them to feel right.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to force it to work. And in the process of feeling the offness of it, it's not even working for us, first of all, because it's not aligned, it's not congruent. But then we go into making it mean something negative about us. Like,
Mm.
I'm not good enough to be successful. I'm not self-disciplined enough to be able to force myself to do this thing that feels incongruent to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, certainly there are a lot of internal areas for growth. I'm not talking about where we need to work on improving our self-confidence or getting over certain fears and self-limiting beliefs and things like that. I'm talking about like what you said, where this is who I am. This is what I value. This is the lifestyle that I'm in business for to begin with. And here I am trying to be this other person,
Mm-hmm.
and it's incongruent. And I
Yeah.
bet that there are some people who are listening who are still they're experiencing it. They're currently going through it. They
Yeah.
read the stuff on social media. You know, there's so many amazing people who are doing amazing things, and we look up to them and we say, okay, you're doing great things. I should listen. I should follow along. I should do what you say. But sometimes their values are not congruent with our values. So before we get into maybe some of the technical, strategic stuff, maybe let's talk a little bit about that and see if we can shift some mindsets to accept that our journey is going to be unique and there is a right way for us to be successful and still congruent with our values and able to do the other things that we value and prioritize in our life.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think there's a couple things we can take away from that. One, I do think there is an ability where you can learn from anyone and take what's going to be great for you and leave the rest and really get ROI pretty much out of any potential learning opportunity. That being said, when that's not necessarily your skill set or you don't have practice doing that yet, I think it's much easier to approach it in the how we choose to consume because there is just so much out there. There's so many different people talking, there's so many people sharing different strategies, different ways you can build, different ways you can market, different ways you can sell, all of it. And it's our job first. We can be attracted to someone's results all day long. But if we don't like how they got there, we're probably not going to like their method for what we would have to implement. So, my suggestion to you, if you see someone out there and you're like, oh, I want what they got, I want what they got, but you hear yourself saying, but I don't like how they got there, I would probably back up a little bit and say, maybe this isn't a right fit to start for someone to learn from. It doesn't mean that further along in your business, you couldn't go take a golden nugget here or a learning there, or even still invest with them and really learn how to take a framework and apply it to you or adjust based on your values or ethics. But to start, I would really look for people that you're like, I want their lifestyle and what it's afforded them. And if you can have that alignment with both, it's typically going to be much easier to know that this is also going to work for you on the back end. But I think sometimes we can't always be so focused on who we're getting that information from. Um, really thinking about what is the method in which I can show up in this time, and then we can always find a strategy that's going to work for that. Like, I have plenty of friends who would sing the praises of live launching all night long and talk to you about how you should build an offer and then launch to a big audience and have all this build up and then this entire process on the back end. And I have other people that would sit down and be like, the value is all asynchronous. If you can get all of this automated and build an evergreen funnel and da 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 da, they would have all of the same things to say about something that sounds almost exactly the opposite in terms of delivery. But you have to decide, how can you show up in this season? And with those constraints, look at what your options are to get to whatever goal that you're trying to accomplish.
I think this is a perfect place to segue a little bit into some of the tactical stuff, because you touched on it. And when it comes to business, we know that ultimately revenue and sales it's the critical element, right? Without sales, without income coming into the business, there is no business. It also is sometimes one of the most frustrating, confusing, trips people up the most parts of their business, because so many people are saying, well, do it this way. No, do it this way. This is how you get this is how you attract leads. This is how you get people onto your email list. This is how you connect with new clients, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you advocate for coming up with an irresistible offer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because that oftentimes is the sort of starting point, if you will, to getting that new client or customer. And for a lot of people, they've heard of things like, oh, I need to have a USP. I need to have a one-liner. I need to, and there are also a lot of people who are struggling to differentiate themselves. And so I was in a program a couple of years back where the first thing was all about coming up with your elevator pitch, your one-liner. A
Mm-hmm.
year into the program, people were still fiddle fucking around trying to figure out what their one-liner was, what their elevator pitch was, changing it constantly. Oh, this must be why my business is not growing. you know, um, we hear people's one-liners all the time, their elevator pitch all the time. Rarely ever are people like, oh, really? Well, let me give you some money for that. That sounds fascinating. So let's talk about the unique offer, which kind of is still playing off of that concept, but it's more strategic.
Mm-hmm.
So can you define perhaps what an irresistible offer actually is for someone who is not already indoctrinated into that language? And then what are what's a formula, or what are the steps to begin to figure that out for yourself?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, when they start talking about building an irresistible offer, they really get into, creating alignment between your ideal client and the problem that you're solving. And the part that people talk about making it irresistible is typically using the line, making an offer that someone can't refuse. Like, the value is so great, the outcome potential is so great, you would be dumb for saying no. And I've seen people even to the extent of talking about giving away services for free to win a client to ultimately deliver. And those are all things you could do. I prefer to create a value exchange that is going to earn someone's trust so that they will go on to purchase from me multiple times, not just once. And so the way I look at this a little bit different is I always think about the entry point because so many people are focused on profit and sales, but they forget that those things aren't possible unless they have enough of an ideal client base to sell to in the first place. I've seen many people sell through their list or their contacts where they may have done well for 12 months or 2 years or even 5 years. And then suddenly they're like, I don't have any leads. And it's like, well, were you working on growing enough traffic to grow the amount of people that even know you exist in the meantime? I don't know. So I like to get people a little bit more focused back on how do we get traffic and create something that people are attracted to that's going to solve a problem very quickly. So what this looks like is I want to see people creating an entry point offer. And this entry point offer, it's not necessarily like a tripwire. It's not even necessarily a lead magnet. The goal here is to solve a small problem, a problem that your ideal clients all face. And typically the problem that's going to fall directly before your signature offer makes sense. So if your signature offer is, I mean, insert anything. You want to be thinking about potentially like what is the thing that you're always struggling with when onboarding a client? When you bring someone in, they get stuck on that point. So to your point, you're like, the first part was getting the elevator pitch down. Well, maybe creating the elevator pitch needs to be pulled out as an initial thing that's outside of this thing. So they come in with this and they're ready to run. Okay, how can we make people ready to run into whatever it is that you have going on? So your entry point offer needs to solve a real problem, but it needs to solve it quickly. I think so many people go into creating either a low price digital product or a mini course or whatever, and they try to package up everything they've ever learned about any subject matter. And ultimately, that's a very overwhelming experience, but there isn't a clear start and stop. Who's coming in and what are they getting as a result of this thing? And so I really try to make sure to create that irresistibility that you're getting a quick win for someone potentially within the first couple of minutes, hours, or days. We're not looking for a transformation that takes weeks, months, or years. Those things need to be put into potentially a more expensive offer, a more signature offer, but we need a quick transformation. And when that quick transformation happens, you all of a sudden earn the trust of these people. They came in, spent a small amount of money, you taught them something or gave them value in some way. They solved a very real problem in their life and it's done. Like you solved it. They're at the finish line already. And they're like, wait, if I can go this far, this fast, then I can only imagine what's on the other side. Like what's next for me. And focusing on that entry point has given me the opportunity to work with thousands of clients over the last 9 years. That wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't thought about how do I earn their trust and win their attention.
Okay, so everything you just shared there is really powerful. And I'm going to encourage people to actually re-listen and maybe take some notes and really contemplate these things because this is, it seems, I mean, you covered it so perfectly, but this is something that people really have to feel into. They really have to think about it. They really have to be clear on who is my ideal client. What is something that I can support them with in that way that is going to be a quick shift, a quick transformation. But it also has to be something that they really, really, really want. Now, sometimes we make a mistake because we're so in our business. We know what our clients' biggest tripping points are. We know what they need, but what they really need isn't necessarily what they want or what they think they need. So where we get in our own way right, can kind of block that awareness of what that initial offer should be. Do you have any tips or suggestions for how to get out of our own way so that we can more clearly know what that irresistible initial offer should be?
Yeah. I think oftentimes it's the thing that they keep telling you, and you're keeping like, but 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 just put that aside for now. Like, I want you to focus here. If you keep saying put that aside for now, it's because it's top of mind for them. They're consistently thinking about it. They're consistently asking about it. They want it to come to fruition. And I have totally made that mistake. I have been so focused on, I know they need XYZ result or XYZ information to get to where they want to go. But they're over here screaming at me saying, I mean, like into the void rather, like that I want XYZ, and they're not focused on their needs. Most people aren't. Most people aren't focused on their needs. Most people are focused on what they want. And yeah, yes, I think there is a boundary there. Like, you're focused on what you need until you have your four walls covered. When you have your four walls covered, you can eat, you can pay your bills, then you're thinking about what you want. And so I really try to survey my people and do this in a really effective manner. But, you know, as crazy as this sounds, sometimes the answer you're only going to get on the other side of trying something that's not going to work. So, you know, we could spend literally all day, weeks, months, even years trying to come up with the perfect entry point offer for you. But if you don't launch anything, you're never going to know. And so I am way more focused on you just going from, I have these couple of ideas. Let's go with one of them. Let's run with that. Let's gather the information. Let's see how it resonates. And if they're like, oh, I was really hoping it was this, or, oh, but what about blah, blah, blah? We can take all of the information on the other side of that launch to turn around and adjust. I have absolutely changed my entry point offer many times throughout the course of my business. Sometimes it's because technology shifts or marketing trends change. But we need to be focused on what's top of mind. And I will say, as like annoying as it might be, sometimes what's trendy is what's going to sell. And you may capture a portion of people for 6 months, for a year, and then have to adjust. I'm not saying like a trend that's going to be here today, gone tomorrow, but like what's sticky in your industry? What are people talking about? What are people recording content about? Typically, that's the kind of thing that's going to be easy to sell on the back end.
Awesome. All right, let's talk just a little bit. I know we're blasting through our time here, but I want to talk just a little bit about this theme that you've mentioned to me that you're seeing, where people want to shift from one to one to many. They get it. They want to create digital products. They want to create group programs. They want to leverage their time so that they can grow, so that it's not just about trading time for money. They can create a scalable business. This is such a big topic that I know we're not going to be able to get into a lot on this subject. But what I want to talk about is where different types of businesses may be able to start exploring it. So we know for like a coach, for instance, they may be able to do a group model. We know for someone who is able to teach, right? They can more easily create a digital product. But there are a lot of different ways that people can build in like membership programs and maybe have a hybrid, like a digital on-demand teaching component, and then perhaps also offer some of the one-on-one services. Can you maybe just throw out some of the different scenarios that you've seen
Yeah.
working with business owners and how they have been able to create a bit more leverage in their business, just to get some creative juices flowing for some of our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely chat more about what this transition might look like over on the Strategy Hour podcast. So definitely check out some episodes there. But I would say, in terms of where to focus, it depends on your end goal, your end game. And I see people kind of falling in three different buckets. The easiest, the absolute easiest path would be to continue selling to the same ideal client and creating value alignment that's more of an entry point offer that will ultimately lead to some sort of signature service that maybe at some point you retire or turn into a group offer. But creating that value alignment so you're continuing to talk to the same person is going to give you the quickest win. Some people want to take all of the years and all of the time and all of the experience that they have to this point, and they want to teach people how they did what they did. And ultimately, people need to understand that that is creating an entirely new business. You are building a separate audience that you're going to sell different offers to. And even if you call it the same business, even if your, finances are intertwined, ultimately it's a new model with new people and a new structure. And so you're going to have a bigger kind of time lapse to get to where you want to go. And then there is the people that haven't necessarily started a business yet at all and are like, I want to avoid building an agency style business or a brick and mortar, and I want to go all online from the beginning. I'm interested in one to many. And they can start in pretty much any subject. It's going to be the easiest for sure if you're brand new to this to start in an area where you feel like you could just talk about for hours. You don't necessarily need to learn anything new. You don't need to learn a new program. You don't need to take a course. You don't need to go to school for it. Like, you already have that base level knowledge. And it doesn't have to be about anything specific. It could be completely related to the career you've had to this point. But I've absolutely seen people be successful in things that were hobbies or personal endeavors that they've decided to really double down on and focus on that for their future. But I think the biggest thing you need to be focused on, if this is the process you want to go through, like ultimately in an ideal world, whether it's I want to just reduce the number of one-on-one hours, or I want to completely get away from one-on-one and do exclusively one-to-many, you need to be thinking about volume. And I think so many people forget this. They're just like, this sounds great. I would love to sell passively in my sleep, automated all the time. And this sounds great in theory, but if you're selling something at $50 versus 5,000, you literally need 100 more people to convert to make the same amount of money. And so, I think it's totally doable for anyone who has the desire and the drive and the willingness to put in the effort. But you are going to have to build a community of people that are interested in what you do. So if you're not ready to sell a one-to-many offer, that's fine. But how can you start creating a community that you can sell to? This can start with social media, but ultimately driving them to some sort of email list so you have their information, you can capture their attention, and you can nurture them to ultimately sell to later. That is going to be the thing that's going to get you the furthest, the fastest. The more people you have in your world, the more opportunities you have to sell to them.
Okay. Gold, gold, gold. Love it. You know your shit.
I do.
I'm going to encourage everybody to go check out your podcast. Can you say the name of it again?
Yeah, it's the Strategy Hour podcast. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can check it out.
Okay. So, I mean, seriously, if this is resonating, go check out the podcast. Where else can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, I would love for you guys to check out, you can see all our show notes, previous blog posts, other valuable things over at bossproject.com. I'm also the creator of creativetemplateshop.com, which has a ton of tools and resources built for small businesses. But for those of you who've listened to all of this today and you're like, I would love to build a digital product. I would love to build that quick win. Like, I'm excited about seeing what that looks like. I have a completely free 1 day challenge that's going to help you go from idea post to launch in literally 1 day. I've helped over 7,000 people go through this process. You can get it for free at bossproject.com/launch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abigail, for being with us today. You dropped some nuggets for sure. This is one of those episodes people are going to want to re-listen to.
I'm excited for that.
Awesome. And of course, thank you to all of our listeners. You know we're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.